corporate media have finally come out and said the words that the Senate is holding an inquiry into road transport and that truck drivers are looking to raise the standards and conditions. As you see, I'm going grey from it all, and I haven't put out a podcast for a while because I didn't think much was going to happen, but the Senate has finally sent me the invite for the 24th of July hearing in Brisbane to be a witness, so that's going to go on. And in the meantime, the media are finally bringing truck driver issues to the narrative, and what the New South Wales Premier has labelled toll mania. That truck drivers are complaining about the toll on the road and how much it's costing them, how much it's hurting them, and how it's going to hurt their business and the recovery during whatever they're going to do from the outcome of all this crap that they've done, from the bushfires, drought, pandemic and economic disaster that they've created through, well, they had the run of it. They made the laws and they repealed the laws, and now this is the fruit of their labour of repealing the Road Safety Remuneration Act safety orders that would have brought about a level of protection for every truck driver and every business across Australia. They would have had protection from all this stuff. And they removed our human rights as drivers and stuff like that. And as you can see from the stuff that's coming out, that we don't have the right to stop if we're tired. There's been stuff coming out, companies working guys 30 days without a day off. And we've seen some of the rates be published here on my channel and on my Facebook, showing the rates as low as $55 an hour flat for a semi-trailer hire. And if you're providing an equipment and a man for $55 an hour, then that's the standards of the industry, and that's how low they are. And Frank Black got a threatening letter from the ACCC about rates, and I've published them. They can come after me for creating a cartel or whatever they threatened Frank with, but I don't own any trucks. I just have to try and survive in this environment amongst all the other drivers that are trying to survive and trying to get home to their families. So here's what Channel 9 had to say.
They worked hard to get food and essentials delivered at the height of the pandemic, but it's been revealed truck drivers are doing it tough. A third have faced lost income or redundancies, and alarmingly, many say their employers failed to take appropriate measures to protect them against COVID-19.
As a truck driver, Paul Newton couldn't have been busier when the pandemic hit and retailers were desperate for supplies. Then his business fell off a cliff, down by as much as 40%.
Day by day, I just turned up every day hoping and praying that I still had a job to go to.
Like many, Paul missed out on government subsidies.
It was a concern, given that I've got outlays for vehicles, insurances, such as workers' compensation. All those fixed costs remained.
Things have started to improve, but not to pre-COVID levels. The Transport Workers Union surveyed 3,500 truck drivers, couriers and logistics workers. It found 34% have had their hours reduced, been stood down or made redundant. 42% lost 20% or more of their income. 62% were worried about losing their jobs, while 36% said their employer had taken no COVID-19 precautions.
When transport workers are under pressure, then the general Australian road-using public is in danger.
And that, the union says, is because when companies are struggling, cutting corners is more likely. But the industry itself is hoping for a swift recovery once restrictions ease more completely.
What you have seen is the extraordinary work that truckies and operators have performed in extremely stressful situations.
Truck drivers are hoping a Senate inquiry into standards and practices in the industry will help deliver reform. Hearings were put on hold because of COVID-19, but are about to begin again.
The Transport Workers Union has consistently accused those at the top of the supply chain of squeezing out profits at the expense of safety, even before the pandemic hit.
And the government needs to step up now and put something in place to get this industry into shape.
Eddie Meyer.
All right, as you can see from that clip, they did just mention that there is a Senate inquiry on at the end and that we're hoping to get some things changed and stuff like that, but they didn't mention any of the submissions or anything like that. But then did you notice that the Transport Workers Union, it was all Transport Workers Union, but if you go on the Senate website, there's no submission from the Transport Workers Union. I've spoken to Michael Caine. I've asked Michael Caine from the union where their submission is, when I can read it, and I haven't heard back from him. I asked him for a meeting. Glenn Stirl told me to get in contact with him. I did. I went through his office. He wanted 3 weeks to set up a meeting. I set up a meeting with him, and he blew me off. He didn't turn up to the meeting. He sent the lawyer, and all the lawyer wanted to know was what I wanted to do, and then reserve their position on everything that I asked. So I didn't get any answers. Now, Michael Caine's got my phone number, and I haven't heard from him. It's just over 2 weeks until the hearing, and I haven't heard from anyone from the union. So, and you know, they don't want to really change much, because you can see that during this time, all they've talked about is the planes, and all these workers. And yep, these plane workers, they deserve a fair go, and we all know that, and not taken away from anyone in the airline industry or any other industry that's involved in transport. But, you know, 33 truck drivers have been killed this year so far, and, you know, we're 2 weeks out from hearing, probably hit 35 by then, 36 maybe. You know, it depends how many and how much, and as you can tell from what else is going on, that, you know, I'll show you the tollgate stuff. Here's the toll mania that Channel 7 put out.
Well, thank you so much for coming out here this morning. The TWU this morning joins in this campaign because we are totally outraged on behalf of our membership, in particular owner-drivers section who use these roads, who are continuously being grabbed in the pockets by state government and big end of town, taking money off the kitchen table off these people. These people are owner-drivers, small businesses. There's no one in Macquarie Street other than this side of the fence that stands up for these owner-drivers and these small business people in an attempt to secure their living and ensure that they are safe on our roads. In a survey released this morning, the results of which over 3,500 drivers participated in it, we found that over 40% have lost at least 20% of their earnings over the past 6 months or longer. We've had a coronavirus, we're still in a pandemic, it's about to probably get worse, and we've got state government, Transurban, ripping money out of people's pockets. People who cannot afford any more cost put onto them by the state government is absolutely outrageous, it's disgusting, and it needs to be pointed out to the larger community that this is unacceptable. We need to do better, we can do better, but this state government is not prepared to do it. We need relief and we need assistance. We don't need people putting their hands in our pocket, taking more money out of the owner-drivers, small businesses' pockets. I have two owner-drivers with me today, one of which is Tony Matthews, who will speak to you now, followed by the next, which I'll introduce after that. Thank you so much. Tony?
G'day. Look, I'm Tony Matthews. I'm the president of the TWU in New South Wales, and unfortunately we sort of meet again today. The same scenario is that we've got an industry that's under threat. You know, it's a dilemma where to try and manage a business is nearly getting impossible because the margins that we're making are so skinny. To be throwing another egg at us in regards to an increase in tolls that could, you know, just be enough to toss a bloke across, you know, and that's enough to sort of not be able to do our business. And we just, you know, the frustration has been, you know, mounting for some time now, but, you know, I just cannot understand a government that's going to do this to us and then, you know, without any oppose, you know, like all the majors have been asked to take a breather for a year. We've made those agreements not to put any costs onto them. In other words, we're taking our freeze for the next 12 months, and that's across most of the major companies. But this government seems that they can just sort of try and hit us up on this. So we're not getting money coming in and just another bill that's going out that's quite substantial to us.
I'd just like to introduce to you now Phil Ramondino, who's a tip truck section member. He drives the mud carter trucks that you see around town and carts them out into the western suburbs to offload his load into tips. And these people would be using all of these roads that we're talking about here today numerously each day and in every week. So their cost will be thousands of dollars per week in using these toll roads, in which they're ill afford and cannot afford any longer. Phil?
Hi, I'm an owner driver that works in Sydney nearly every day. We can't work out how the government's come up with these fees and how they calculate in the distance that we travel. For example, you got the E-ramp there on Military Road. It's $5.51, which is probably 200 metres. Then you got the lane code double, which is $11.11, and that's like 3 kilometres. So when you compare the two, you just work out how do they come up with $5.51 for a ramp. It's just a ramp. But in a daily run of our work, it can cost us anything between $20 to $290 a day. When you multiply that by the 5 days we work, it's nearly $1,500 a week. And to recoup this money, because our money comes out straight away. When you hear the beeper go off, our money comes out. It takes us up to 60 to 90 days to recoup our money. So we're going backwards. And now they want to force us to use the M1 and not use Penadilla Road. And if you do use the M1, it's a $194 fine. I said, you know, at the end of the day, we help build these roads. We work every day with them. We do the tunnels and all that. But there's no help to us. We're just getting rewarded all the time and charged. We've got excess registration for load permits, which is another $6,000 a year extra. And we're just getting destroyed. I mean, that's why there's that many accidents out there, because drivers out there driving like lunatics to make up the difference, to try and make up the load. So we're going to see a lot more accidents, a lot more idiots driving to make up the difference, and it's become dangerous, and they're sending us broke. It's as simple as that. Thank you very much.
John Graham, Shadow Minister for Roads. Welcome to the site of Sydney's latest episode of Tollmania. The Premier's embarrassed that she told the truth about Tollmania. We say there's no need to be embarrassed. This government can do something about it. Provide relief to drivers, provide toll-free periods as it opens roads like these. That'd be the decent thing to do for drivers. This is the latest episode. Of course, this now turns to North Connects. That road due to open in a couple of months, as you've heard, and those significant costs. These drivers don't have a choice. They have to pay a toll or pay a fine. And for all of us, that cost, some of those costs get passed on to consumers. So we all pay for the sorts of costs that you've heard about today. This government can't even agree on the name of these tunnels. The Minister, Andrew Constance, insists they're the M8 tunnels, but press releases from the government insist it's the new M5. Well, this Minister is having a lend. He's given us the M8 tunnels, the MATE tunnels in Sydney. This is the only MATE I know who charge you more than $3,300 a year to drop you into work and back. This Minister is having a lend. So Tollmania today, but Tollmania continues over the next months as the North Connects opens.
Okay, happy to take questions.
So Jodie, what do you want to see? What can they do? The tolls are set. What needs to happen?
Well, the government has the power to offer toll relief and to understand the huge impost that this is having on drivers. I think that when you look at what's happening with North Connects, where drivers are being forced to use the tunnel or fined more than $190, that is outrageous. That means that that cost has to be borne by them. There is no way that they can use an alternate route. I do think there needs to be consideration, particularly during this recession, that people are doing it tough, and at a time where people are doing it tough, these owner drivers are being slugged whichever way they drive. East, west, north, south, hand in the pocket, hand it over, and that impacts their bottom line.
So toll relief in the way that it currently operates in private.
Yeah, I think it's really important that at this particular time the government looks at toll relief for these owner drivers. As you've heard from Philip, and I'm sure Philip, the other Philip, will also talk to you, these guys are actually working on government projects, yet as they said, every time there's a beep, that comes out of their credit card, but the government's not paying them for sometimes up to 90 days. So that cost, that couple of $100 a week, is and almost $1,000 a month sometimes more than that, is being borne by them. So I think particularly during this time, the government needs to look at how it can support these businesses. You have to remember that these guys behind me, they are small businesses. They're owner-drivers. They're running their own business, and that cost is just exorbitant for them.
So we are living through our first recession in 2019. Should Liberals be easing costs, or is this warranted?
No, I think that the government should absolutely be offering toll relief for these drivers. And the first thing they should do is ensure that there is fairness for these drivers when it comes to the North Connects tunnel. That is the first time in this state, in fact, I don't know anywhere else, where drivers are actually forced to use a tunnel and pay more than $20 each time they do that, or else they face a $190 fine. They have no option. It's forcing them to pay, and I think that's wrong. With me, let me introduce a whole range of people who are here with me who feel very strongly about the tolls, which of course went on the M5 East and the M8 over the weekend. I have Richard and Tony, who are Secretary and President of the TWU, representing owner-drivers right across this state. I also have the member for Macquarie Fields, the member for Lakemba, the member for Liverpool, the member for Campbelltown, and of course our Shadow Roads Minister. A number of people want to speak today, but I think it's important that each and every one of you understands the huge impact that this toll is having, not just on motorists, but on owner-drivers right across this state. As you know, the toll was introduced over the weekend, a toll on the M5 East, which is not a new road. In fact, by the time this toll contract expires, it will have been paid 15 times over by motorists in Sydney's southwest. And when I say motorists, I don't just mean those who drive a car, I mean those who are owner-drivers who are being impacted significantly on what Gladys Berejiklian has termed toll mania. It's important to know that the government has set the toll for truck drivers at 3 times the toll for motorists here on this road. What that means is that truck drivers, when they travel this road, are paying the M5 East more than $20 to travel the M5 East alone. That is a huge impost on their businesses, an impost that is being carried by them personally each and every time they hear that beep as they pass along these roads. And of course, it's going to get worse with North Connects when it comes online in the next couple of months. Now, North Connects carries a fine of $194 if you don't use the tunnel, and of course a toll of more than $20. Now, it's really important to understand that the government has set the toll at triple what it is for motorists, with absolutely no explanation and no evidence as to how they arrived at that figure. When I was Shadow Roads Minister, I questioned them a number of times. They cannot tell you how they arrived at that triple the figure. But it is significantly, it is how Transurban is making most of its profit, through truck tolls. Now, we can understand that trucks, obviously, and these gentlemen will tell you, they do cause wear and tear on the roads. But the fact is that tolls right across this city, east, west, north, south, is impacting on these small businesses that have gone through such a difficult time and continue to do so in this recession. We have said to the government there needs to be active consideration about how you support these owner-drivers in particular. They will tell you of the hundreds and hundreds, thousands of dollars that they're paying in any given day and week just to do what they do, which is to make sure that people right across this state have the goods and services that they need. It is a massive impost, it is an unfair impost, and it's being carried by small businesses right across this state. The Premier needs to understand that yes, motorways need to be paid for, but you can't hit people in the hip pocket.
What we can't work out is, we know there's got to be tolls. There's roads being built. We know there's got to be tolls. But how do you work out the figures? Like, you've got the whole of the M5, which is around $15. Then you've got M5 East, which is half the distance. It's $23 or $29. How do you work out the mathematics? We just don't know. So we know there's got to be a toll, but it's either got to be capped or pay as you use. I don't know, because you've got the M7, whatever you use, you get charged for. You don't get charged for the whole distance. So we just want some answers.
When you say a cap, would you be happy with a daily cap? I mean, if you reach a point you can't go over that. I mean, you said it ranges from $20 to $200 a day. And if there was a cap somewhere in there, could that be feasible or workable? I don't know.
Look, we'd have to work through it, but something like that might work. We'd have to work through it. But yeah, anything helps at the moment.
Yeah, because the overcard caps at $50 a week. Like obviously it's going to be a bit more for driving these roads, but
Yeah, because the variances could be, I could use the M5 once, I could use it 10 times. So a cap would help, 100%.
Can I ask you, you had some examples of how much it does range. Last year, do you have an idea how much you spent in tolls? I'm just intrigued to know on an average year how much, as a small business operator, you've forked out on tolls in Sydney roads.
Well, I can tell you, a person that owns 10 trucks will cost them $30,000 a month.
As an owner-driver?
As an owner-driver, so, you know, you're roughly around $3,000 a month.
In tolls?
Just depending on the jobs you're doing.
Yeah, right.
Do you want to explain your situation, Phil, as well?
For the road tax?
Actually,
Yeah,
just before you go,
just
Phil,
sorry.
Phil, just before you go, can you just spell your name for us, mate, just so we've got it on the record, just for all the viewers?
It's Ramondino, Ramondino.
And Phil?
Philip, yeah.
Philip, was it double L or one L?
Double L.
Double L. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
Hi, mate. How are you? What was the question?
Do you want to just explain your situation, how much you're paying in
Yeah, we were
tolls
talking
and-
about numbers off camera before.
Yeah.
I mean, how much do you fork out a year in tolls?
We're up anywhere between 12 and 14,000 per year, and probably on an average about $300 to $450 a day.
Do you think it's fair that you get no relief as we saw before private?
No, I don't, because their argument is with us is that we're a heavy vehicle, so obviously they're worried about wrecking the roads and stuff like that, which I get that, but we already pay that on our rego, which is $14,000 a year also. So, like, where's it all going to stop? You know, we just can't survive it anymore. It's just getting too difficult. Sorry. We're happy to pay tolls, but I don't see why we've got to pay 3 or 4 times more than a vehicle, than a car. We're happy to pay. We already pay a road tax. We pay a very hefty road tax. So I don't see why we should pay it. You know, we're getting taxed again. So
As a car driver, do you think the car tolls for car drivers is fair?
I think it's quite high, actually, as a car driver. Way too high. Because someone that drives to work every single day, you know, it's probably in the vicinity of $30 a day in tolls if they live out west and they're working in Botany, for argument's sake. You know, you take that out of your salary, it becomes a $250 episode per week.